There was a rally in Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I couldn't go to it, but the police put an announcement the day before, basically saying that it's illegal, essentially, and we will be using force, proportionate force. And Nicola Sturgeon made some noise to say, us to say these can't go ahead. I mean, this is it's huge intimidation, and she uses all the words of compliance and following the rules, and it's very dictatorial and authoritarian. And but what I find, this war of words, it feels like it's much like a war of words. Something really struck me. What's happening in Scotland is the intimidation, subtle intimidation. It's part of my job. I listen to the words that people say and the way they say them, and you can get a hint of kind of, you don't need much training to do it, but if you sit with people long, you become very sensitized to it, or very sensitive to it and aware of it. And some of the messages that are coming from shops and transport companies, and I had a bit of a Twitter battle on Twitter with Lothian buses. Basically, Lothian buses. I'll get the pic. I don't know if I could show you the picture, but yeah. I'll read it out. They, on their ticket, when you go to, someone sent me this. When you get where is it? Screenshot. When you get a ticket from the bus, you have to pay your ticket. It's got like some information on it, and the information says face coverings are mandatory. Scottish government legislation requires that customers must wear a face covering when travelling on public transport, unless they are exempt. Yeah. We are asking all customers who cannot wear a face covering to consider carrying proof of exemption. Further information can be found. So I sent a message to them. I said, in public Twitter, I said, what's going on here? Why are you asking people to do this, to consider wearing getting lanyards or whatever? And where is it? So they said, can you give us a direct message? So I said, okay. And they sent me a long message, and they said, apologies if my tweet was unclear or caused any confusion. We are doing everything we can to ensure customers are aware of the government's instruction and the responsibility they have ensuring they are complying in full with wearing face coverings on public transport, unless exempt due to disability or on medical grounds. We are aware that for some people, they will be unable to wear face coverings for various reasons. The Scottish Government has advised that those exempt under the guidance and regulations do not have to prove their exemption and should not be made to wear a face covering or denied access to public transport, shops or public places. We ask for people to be aware of the exemptions and to treat each other with kindness. You can read more here. And so it was just blah, blah, blah. And essentially, I said, thank you for your reply. I said, but why are you encouraging people to consider using exemptions or lanyards or a sticker or a badge? I said, what is your motive and goal of encouraging people to consider using exemption products? If there's no need to use them, why would you ask someone to consider using them? No reply. I've been waiting for days now. No reply from them.
She's at the computer. The computer says no, that's a logical fallacy. I don't think that works. That doesn't follow the guidelines. COVID-19. There is no rebuttal. There isn't a rebuttal. There isn't even, a consistency in the logic of, and when you break it down, but she cannot take it any further. She's stuck at that. Even the press secretary, there is no response after a week. Maybe there's a deluge of eminent psychologists, questioning the same thing, and she's trying to catch up with your good self, Bruce. What do you think?
Well, it seems to be in other places. Another YouTuber actually photo via off. She sent me a video. She was talking to a woman outside I think it was a mobile phone shop. Did a sign saying, you know, you have to wear a mask to come in, and they have a guard basically at the door, and you know, it's all set up for intimidation. They're saying, oh yeah, okay, you don't have to wear one, but we're reminding you you have to wear. But everyone knows the masks are mandatory, and everyone. But why is everyone making such a big song and dance about considering wearing lanyards? Why would the only way one would consider wearing a lanyard, surely, if you've got to be threatened or shamed or hassled in public, that's the only reason. So essentially, what they're saying is, well, you could be hassled, you could be shamed, you could be assaulted.
Yeah. Why do you think?
You know, it's
sorry, Bruce. Why do you think people cannot make the analogy? I mean, I'm sure the majority, most of us do. Even as you describe it, the lanyard wearing the identification, the yellow star, that it all goes back, you know, to separate, you know, to shame, to exclude, to segregate, and again further division, and it's enforced by guilting the people, you know, to say, you know, to actually follow lies, you know, even when the truths are even when the evidence it totally does not corroborate their position. Sorry, I know I'm stuttering a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is there's a complete snap in the logic circuits. You know, what they appear to know to be true, that and what you're describing just doesn't work, doesn't make sense. So they're just going to reinforce the propaganda because it's easier rather than standing out. I know that was very long-winded. I do apologize, Bruce, but yeah.
I think you know that essentially what these messages are saying to me is they're dying to tell people they have to wear a mask. They're desperate in their if they were given an extra inch, they would be holding people down, putting the masks on them. You know, they're trying to make it out we're all friendly and we want to make people safe, but there's an aggression behind these intimidations and from bus tickets reminding you, oh, you could wear a lanyard. I mean, as I mentioned before we started, I was stopped on the train. Some guard said to me, "Where's your mask?"
Yeah,
I said, I don't need one. He goes, "Oh, you do? It's regulation." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "No, if you don't need one, you don't." He says, "Oh, I'm just doing my job." I said, "No, it's illegal for you to ask me." "Oh, I'm just doing my job." I said, and he started running away down the carriage. And I said, "You don't have to ask. You're not allowed to ask me, you know." That's not making my journey safe, you know. It's not making people who are not wearing masks journeys. They're doing that to people without wearing a mask. That's making their life a misery. ScotRail say when you walk into the train station or any train station in Scotland, there's tannoy announcements, you know, saying wear a mask, social distance, blah blah blah. But some people don't wear a mask or treat them kindly. But they're not treating people kindly. They're treating people who are not wearing masks like second-class citizens. And it's deliberate. It's drip, 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 making their life a bloody misery. And it's keeping others safe, Bruce. Someone's just commented. It's debatable. I mean, all of the scientists are coming out today are talking about the harm of wearing masks, the bacteria and the fibers that can get into the lungs for wearing these. You know, the ordinary cloth masks. These are homemade ones.
I know there's friends that subscribers and people that messaging me, and I don't know if it's Liz. Liz might be in the conversation there as well. Actually, has a condition derived from excessive mask wearing. The fibers coming out from the mask have been traveling up. You know, when you exhale, and the most leaky point for the airflow is beside the eyes and exhaling through the sides. But the constant buildup of the microfibers from the mask and the constant irritation has actually infected the tear ducts, and I'm sure there's all the poor children. When I think we were only mentioning it just before the show, about me saying I'd seen the kids coming out of the school, and the majority of them not wearing, which I was quite pleased with, but the one or two that are wearing it clearly as a fashion accessory, and from the classroom all the way back to the household. And I wonder, and I think, do they have their grandparents living at home with them, and it's just everything is now ultra sterile to protect, and the guilt that places on the child then as well, to be, constantly, fearing for the death of the grandparents or being responsible for that. You know what I mean? That would have an effect, I think.
Yeah. I think for young children to be witnessing this in society, considering what the data says of the seriousness of this of COVID, or the actual threat of it, and for to be seeing everyone wearing masks, I think it is a form of subjugation, because I mean there's no real evidence to suggest it's stopping the spread of COVID. Of course, it's not stopped the spread of influenza this year, masks or social distancing. Some of the stats I've seen in Scotland, but I've noticed suddenly in Canada, for example, influenza in 1 year has been eradicated. Pretty much. Very strange.
We shouldn't laugh.
And there's some other data coming, worldwide data with influenza. They seem the books. You can't. It's very difficult to know what's going on now. They talk about fake news before COVID ever happened. We're now in the era of fake news. It's very difficult to even trust the statistics that are coming out, because like what is being cooked and what is not being cooked. I'm trying to think if there's something else I was going to say, but
well, I wanted to steer it over there, Bruce. Quickly, we go back to your Twitter account, and I mentioned it to you as well, also before we start, and hopefully those of you viewing over on Facebook and on YouTube later on, you can make it out. But Bruce retweeted Ivor Cummins at Fat Emperor, who's doing exceptional work over here, another huge content creator over here. But Bruce, I tweeted out this morning, there is a petition going around for RTE to invite Ivor Cummins on to present the data that he has been presenting. One of his video productions went viral and got over 1.5 million views of the account. And with his very calm and reasoned, measured way that he has, just extrapolates the data. And, as we say, here's what it's like on the ground, and here's what the theoretical models of NEFIT and the United Kingdom equivalent are saying. And what the government are trying to impose upon us, people can clearly see now that the data doesn't represent that, and Ivor clearly puts that out there as well today. But Ivor was tweeting out there, he says, doctors rising in Ireland demanding open scientific debate and a return to proportionality and the realistic cost-benefit discussions in Ireland's top newspaper today. Please retweet. So there is movement among the, should we say, the upper echelon of the professional class, the white-collar class, starting to push back, because they can see that, hang on a minute, government is getting out of control.
Yeah, it's they're dismissing out of hand any scientific challenge to the government narrative. I mean, I took it upon myself. I thought, right, I'm going to email my MP. My local MP's John Lamont and the Scottish Borders. And, I had a few points, about, vaccines, for example. I mean, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, despite what the Daily Mail wrote about me a few months ago. I'm an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I've had vaccinations. My children's had certain vaccinations. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with vaccinations in that regard. But as long as they're safe and there's been research done in it. And so I wrote to my MP. I said, that was one of my points was, I'm concerned about this pushing of a vaccination for a virus which is 99.5% of people will be fine in society. Under 60, there's no real thing, and because it's such a young there's not much research being done in it, in terms of time and length and randomized controlled trials, and in the vaccine study, haven't done. They don't know what the long-term side effects will be. So I pointed some of these facts out, and one was a long email, and it was like I was speaking into thin air. He replied back, blah blah blah. The vaccine people are great, and we need to do this. We need to keep people safe until there's a vaccine, and then the vaccine can keep us safe. But of course, that's again, it's ignoring the science, because we've had the flu vaccine for many years, and people get very ill with the flu vaccine, and it's not very effective. I don't know what, it's various studies, 50% effective, 10% effective, and there's various strains of influenza. I mean, my mother, for example, she ended up in hospital a few years ago after taking the flu vaccine, and she was in a ward. She just told me the other day, she was in a ward. All the people in the ward were people her age, roughly her age, and they'd all had the flu vaccine, and they were all in hospital, really ill. I mean, I think some people died because of it. So I mean, there's a risk. There's a risk. I'm not saying the flu vaccine's terrible, but there's a risk, and because we don't know the risks, why would you want to impose it upon the whole of society? The kind of Bill Gates utopian master plan. Well, you may want to offer it to people who are vulnerable if they want to take it. If old people. But it's a non-scientific, and Nicola Sturgeon tweeted out today. She's tweeted out like something about we don't know, we're not certain, we don't know, we haven't got certainty in these things, and we can get things wrong. And I replied to her, I went, yes, you don't know you haven't got all the answers, and many people disagree with you, and I disagree with you. So why do they impose their version of truth? Because it's authoritarian, it's dictatorial. We're not living in a free world now, and so it's the abuse of word, the abuse of language with intimidation, and the abuse of science. It's disgraceful, really, because the vaccine is, for some vaccine experts, the guy Dr. Eden on Twitter, he talks about how essentially when they're proposing to rush this vaccine out, it won't be past the usual stage 3 of how a vaccine trial usually proceeds. So it's an experiment.
An experiment with indemnity. They're indemnified throughout the European region, all with indemnity. We will be the human guinea pigs in all of this. And even at the third, I think it was 30,000, or the volunteer test subjects, 2 have already presented with some myelitis. Live chat will probably let me know they're the correct terminology. And I thought it wasn't GlaxoSmithKline. I think it was Johnson & Johnson's approach. These are the people suffering the consequences, but they're still going to march on ahead. They're still going to mandate that we take the seasonal flu vaccine. And we've got conversations over here in DLive and Twitch talking about their parents taking it and being practically gone the next year. And I think there's a strong correlation, and I think we'll find that historically on review, that there's a direct correlation between those in Italy at the very onset of this that had the early injection of the coronavirus flu, and then had the complication of the COVID that jumped in on top. And that will be a correlation between those two, I believe, in the retrospect or the historical review of it when we do look back.
They're trying to destroy society, like a communism, but they're trying to, turn it into something, a better functioning society, like a kind of very regimented fascist state, So two cheeks of the same arse, essentially. But I mean, it's interesting. So the UNESCO's in the Nuremberg Code after the Second World War. I mean, it essentially talks about consent in the same terms as the UNESCO Code. And it was of course, the Nuremberg Code was created, guidelines for determining what constitutes a war crime. So essentially, you said it's a war. Well, in interpreting these guidelines, you would think it is a war crime, you know.
Yeah.
And indeed, it was on UK Column today. Actually, there was an article on how the World Health Organization, the UN, and they're violating these conventions with voicing mandatory vaccines and lockdowns and masks and all that. They're violating these, and this is what this said in UK Com today. Yeah. And
makes a mockery of everything. It makes a mockery of everything that we're supposed to do. It's, you know, to society, that we all agree to the rules of democracy, or, you know, the equal application of law. It flies in the face. I don't know. Actually, do you know what? I don't allow the frustration to kick in. Go on. Sorry, Bruce. I'm interrupting your point.
You know, a lot of the human rights charities have been deadly silent. You know, chillingly silent over the last few months. Amnesty International, you know, which I've not been a fan of because of their silence on a lot of things recently. They've came out, actually, they've been very concerned about the care home situation in well, I don't know if it's all over the place, but it's especially in UK. They're really concerned. They want an inquiry into the care home deaths, which is a very promising development, I think.
Oh, well, we'll get the same over here. We will get tribunals and well, that's what they tried to play off. That's what happened during the cervical cancer debacle, smeared, and it was just it was pigeonholed. There was a few fingers pointed, few tails wagged. Nobody really lost their position as such, and the main people that were at fault are exalted on high now as the, you know, medical gods that they are. And thank God for Superman, and thank God for everybody else and the politicians, and they're doing a great job. and we're considered the conspiracy theorists, and everybody's walking around with masks that, you know, quantifiably and scientifically can be proven are not effective for what they're told that they're being told to use them for, and are actually causing them harm.